coyotes, it is a very common problem amongst the entire county. It's not just the northern counties. But with it, Clearwater, Dunedin, and Palm Harbor especially have the most sightings throughout the county. In here, there is actually a statistic map. I'm not sure if it'll pull up correctly, but also I do have the link for it that you guys can actually look up the zip code for your neighborhood and be able to find out historical sightings for coyotes in your area, as well as the most recent ones, using the myfwc.org. That's for the Fish and Wildlife Conservation. They are the main handlers of coyotes, so they're the ones who are legally authorized to trap and relocate them. There are some things that you guys can do on your own, but a lot of it should be left to a professional, so that way you avoid getting yourself hurt, you avoid getting your loved ones hurt, as well as you could actually be attributing to the problem of coyotes. All right. Now, before I begin, is there anyone's personal questions or anything that they want to start off with right now? Yes, ma'am.
What was that website again?
myfwc, and then if you want the actual map, it's myfwc.maps, and it'll actually pull up for the coyote sightings throughout the entire continental U.S., but then you can just cycle through the zip codes and be able to find your specific area. And I actually was doing it before I got here. In the city of Clearwater, there has actually been a lot less sightings of coyotes this year thus far compared to last year during this time frame. Last year during this time frame, they had approximately 78 to 85 possible sightings, and then about 56 confirmed sightings of coyotes. Right now we only have 51 suspected sightings and only 25 confirmed. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're going away, but that means they are staying away from you and away from your animals, all right? So I'll say I'm gonna go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, by all means, raise your hand and I can answer. Yes, ma'am.
What do they attack the most?
So
I've heard
with
cats.
coyotes, honestly they will, because I'll say a lot of people leave their cats outside. That is part of the reason why the county has a at-large policy, so there is no such thing as an outdoor cat anymore. We have cat colonies, which are community cats, which are ear-tipped and sterilized. They are allowed to roam free, but they can't reproduce. So if you have your own personal cats that are outside right now, bring them in, because also that is one of the worst things that can happen to them, is coyotes mainly feed on those. But coyotes, they don't typically attack people. They will attack small animals, and for the most part, they'll actually stay away from a larger animal than themselves unless they're in a pack. Because when it comes to humans or large dogs, they will actually steer clear of them. They are very frightened very easily by loud noises, lights, anything. So I'll say, if you're walking your small dog on a leash, make some noise or flash some lights, and it'll actually scare them away. The only time in which they'll stand their ground is if they have been getting used to being fed by humans. So I'll say we'll talk about that later on in the presentation. If they get used to you, then they'll come forward, and that's how people actually get attacked by coyotes a lot more often, when they become adapted to us. We don't want that. So that's called reconditioning. So we'll talk about reconditioning near the end of the presentation, but I'll go ahead and get started with it. So coyotes can take many different forms, and a lot of people don't actually know what a coyote looks like, because they can look like anything. Like, we get plenty of calls for coyotes, and a lot of the times it's just someone's loose shepherd that got out, or someone's small hound mix. Like on here, do any of those look like a coyote to anyone? Top left? That's actually a fox.
Oh, wow. That's my pet.
So that one's a fox. I'll say the one in the right-hand corner is a timber wolf.
Wow.
And then the bottom left is someone's shepherd mix. And then the bottom right is, I believe, a shepherd or hound mixed with a malinois.
Looks like a bear.
None of those are coyotes.
Wow.
I'll say it's very difficult, especially if you're trying to spot them from a distance, to realize it's a coyote. But I'll say there are certain characteristics that you can look for to help see it. I definitely recommend always stay at a distance, because even if it is not a coyote and it's someone's dog, you don't want to endanger yourself, because you don't know that dog's reactiveness to another person that they don't know. So got another one for you right next. Do any of these look like coyotes to anyone? No?
Is
No?
this
So
gonna
the
be a
top left,
trick
that's
one?
another wolf as well. So that one is actually, I believe, a Siberian wolf. And then top right is someone's husky, bottom left is another Siberian husky, and then that's a shepherd in the bottom right. So I'll say one thing that we have found is that there has actually been breeding and crossbreeding amongst coyotes. So I'll say it's more common to see a coyote that looks like a small shepherd because there has actually been breeding amongst them, because I'll say there are plenty of stray dogs in the county, and if a coyote gets near them and they don't attack it, I'll say they could actually breed together, and that's how we get subspecies. It's not super common, but it can happen. Like, I have a couple photos from me and my sergeant, one of the first cases we ran with coyotes. We ended up capturing it and taking it to our shelter. It was infected with scabies at the time, so I'll say when I go to show that picture, anyone who's squeamish, please avert your eyes. But and it actually looks like a small, hairless shepherd. It doesn't even look like a coyote or what I would imagine a coyote look like. So coming up, these are actual photos of coyotes. The one in the bottom right corner is actually taken from here in Pinellas County. I believe that one was in Dunedin. The rest are just normal images that came from FWC. Those are the different types of coyotes that you can see. They don't all necessarily look the same. They can look different in many shapes, sizes, colors, and anything in between. So with coyotes, yes ma'am?
If they are bred or crossed with a house dog, are they tamer?
So honestly, there are a lot of theories, because I'll say it works the same way as normal breeding. Of you can eventually breed aggression out of an animal. Like, that's how people get the wolf hybrids and whatnot, is you can, after years and years of breeding, you can pretty much breed aggression right out of them, where they look exactly the same but are zero aggressive. A lot of the times it doesn't get to that point. Usually the family tree will end up dying off, because the average lifespan of a coyote is about between 4 and 5 years. The much older ones can live to 6, but the reason why coyotes are such a problem is because they are stress reproducers. Meaning the moment they feel their environment is threatened, like say a coyote start disappearing or dying off, a mother coyote will actually go into heat to compensate for the lost pups. And a coyote can have between 6 to 8 pups at one time in a litter, and they can have up to 4 to 5 litters a year. And that's just one female coyote. So what they do is, the moment they start seeing coyotes disappear, the mother goes into heat, and she will start trying to up the numbers. And that's why previous attempts at culling the coyote numbers in the county failed. Because also there was actually a large program that took place in the early 2000s to try and cut down on coyote numbers, because we had maybe like 50,000 in the county, and it actually backfired. We ended up creating more of a problem, because not only were more people getting attacked by coyotes, but there were actually more coyotes because of it, because they will just start reproducing, and it just wasn't as successful. We found that it is a lot more successful in order to teach the public on how to, it's called hazing, so pretty much conditioning a coyote to pretty much stay away from human elements, as well as to keep them away from you and be able to live with them. Because I'll say, if they are not being stressed, they won't reproduce as much. They'll only reproduce enough in order to carry on the family line, but they won't reproduce to the absurd extent. So with it, so right here you have 4 different tracks, and one is from a wolf, one is from a coyote, one is from a red fox, and then a large dog. Can anyone truly see a difference between them? Now, do you think you'll be able to see that difference in the dirt?
No.
I'll say at the end of the day, a paw print looks like a paw print. I'll say there are small differences amongst the oval at the bottom, kind of like the base of your hand. So with it, coyotes, they kind of have the 3 triple right here, kind of looks like a nose. That's the best way to be able to tell, is if you can see that, that's how you know it's a coyote. 90% of the time, about 9 times out of 10, you'll be seeing this one for large dogs, either people walking their dog or just a stray dog that's in the area. And with them, it's just one large hump at the top and then the 2 at the bottom. And it's a lot thicker because they have a thicker paw pad, whereas coyotes don't. They're a lot more small, tender paw pads at the bottom. And that's more or less consistent with medium-sized dogs, is you'll see that the bigger the dog, the bigger the paw pad it's going to have. So I'll say, if you're suspecting it's a coyote, it could possibly be a medium-sized dog. And as for wolves, we don't necessarily have a large wolf population in Pinellas County. They're mainly in the northern counties, and especially like Polk County, further up, and so on and so forth. They'll have more of a wolf population. we don't necessarily, our main problem is coyotes. And for Pinellas County, we didn't necessarily get coyotes here, like they weren't necessarily here before us. We pushed a lot of animals out of the county when everyone was first moving down here and setting up the cities and whatnot. So like the Florida panther, bears, all that, we pushed those animals out in order to build our area. But with coyotes, they came here. So they came from the northern counties and they migrated down south to us, where they migrated across. So they weren't necessarily starting here. So like it says here, normally humans invade wildlife habitats and push wildlife out from it. So the deers, the bears, the panthers, the bobcats, all of that, we end up, when we settle down, we push everything out. With coyotes, they came in when we came here. Because with it, honestly, your trash cans, your food, honestly, they're attracted to that. Same thing with the stray cats. I imagine some people in here have a stray cat problem in their neighborhood. Food, anything like that, it attracts them. So I'll say with them, that's just a problem that we've had to develop and a way to combat it in a sense. So with coyotes having migrated here into Pinellas County, we need to take better steps in order to keep the population down without necessarily getting rid of the population. So like I was saying before about the coyote reproduction, coyote females come into heat normally once per year in the winter months. So that is that about most of the time it's 2 to 4, but a mother could possibly have 12 pups if it is weather permitting, essentially. And if she's under stress, that ups the percentage of her possibly having more pups if needed, yes.
Where do they live?
So a lot of the times they'll live in wooded areas or just a large area away from people. Because coyotes are very antisocial creatures. They will avoid.
It's hard to get away from people.
It is, but I'll say if they find
courses.
wooded area, parks, anywhere that they can have access to their own den away from anything from bothering them, as well as they can have access to food, access to water, they can pretty much live there and not have any problems. Like, honestly, there could be a coyote living in your neighborhood and you wouldn't even know, essentially, because they will wait till it's nighttime, they will avoid human contact, because loud noises are their bane of existence. They absolutely despise loud noises. So I'll say, I was going to talk with it later, but I'll bring it up right now. One of the best things you can do if you have fear of coyotes being in there, I know I talked to somebody, it was you, correct, about the country club? Mm-hmm. We have had coyote sightings up in that area, and a lot of the people, whenever I'm there patrolling for coyotes, I'll advise them, just get like a can, like empty food can or something, fill it up with screws, bolts, and then tape it up, and you shake it. It's basically like a homemade maraca. That will freak them out, because loud noises will scare them away because they are not adapted to doing such. So if you just have one of those handy, like if you're going out for a midnight walk with your significant other or with your dog, so take that with you, and if you see a coyote or just even another dog in itself, they'll actually run away from it 9 times out of 10. The only time they'll actually stay and investigate it is if they are in a pack of about 4 or more, because with them they have a pack mentality. If they have enough people where they think they can stand a chance, they'll stand their ground. Majority of the time, they'll choose to run and hide and live another day than stand their ground. Any questions before I move on?
Do they eat ducks?
If they can catch it, they can.
Because we walked Crest Lake Park, and a year ago there was a ton of ducks, and now there's hardly any ducks. And one of the people that goes there regularly said they saw eagle eat the ducks. So.
I'll say coyotes are scavenger creatures, so they'll eat ducks, they'll eat small dogs. Sorry, I said fuck with my knee right there. Small dogs, cats, squirrels.
Rats.
They can eat a rat. If they can catch it, they can probably eat it. They're scavenger creatures, so they'll pretty much find anything they can, and if they can feed on it, they'll feed on it.
Do they jump over fences?
They can.
How high?
It's hard to say. If they can find a means to get up easily, they'll do it. I've seen like small dogs themselves hop a fence about 4 to 8 feet. So coyote's a little bit bigger than a small dog. If they can pretty much jump up and run up the wall enough to get their front arms over, then they can actually kick themselves over the fence. So all they need to do is be able to get their front paws up, and then they can clear that fence. So I'll talk about it later on about some deterrents that you can put on for fences. But if you don't put something up like that, they can get over a fence. I would recommend electric fencing if you can get it, like electric wiring, or they're called roof caps, but you can pretty much put them at the top of your fence. They're mainly used for stray cats, to stop cats from sitting on people's fences. And there's like a small spike strip of plastic to keep them from being able to sit down on it. They work pretty well for coyotes as well because they won't be able to get their legs over. Another thing you can do is called a fence roller. It's pretty much just like a rolling pin that you use for cooking. You put it at the top of the fence, and when a coyote tries to jump it, it'll pretty much put its paw on and roll back. If they can't put their front paws up, they can't clear the fence. That only works if the fence is high enough that they can't just jump up. If it's a 2-foot fence, they can just jump up. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Alright, so as I was saying with it, coyotes go into heat normally about once a year, but they can if they're being stressed out by culling of their population or destroying of their habitat. They can actually go into heat a lot more and produce a lot more pups. The average lifespan of a coyote is about 5 to 6 years, 6 being on the higher end. That's if they're getting ample amounts of food and water and they're not having to migrate too much. And as I said, if they're pressed or threatened, they will produce more than what's normal. And then a lot of people ask, do coyotes attack people? Not necessarily. Like I said, they are very scared creatures and they will choose to run and hide than attack a person. Because a person is a very large target for them and they will choose not to do that 9 times out of 10. But there has been a reported coyote attack back in 1981 of a 3-year-old girl that was attacked while playing in her front yard by a coyote. It's rare, but it can happen. That mainly happened because in that area, someone was feeding stray cats and it was also feeding the coyotes. So that coyote would come by, oh, there's a food bowl out there for me to eat. Go and eat it.
3-year-old girl.
And no, I'm talking about the normal food bowl, because someone was feeding it. And because it's going there and getting food all the time, it became conditioned to be like, all right, this is normal. Going near people is normal. And that's what caused the problem, is that coyote had adapted to being around people. Most coyotes are not adapted to be around people because they're scared of us. But once they do, then they'll get close to you, and that's how we wind up with attacks like that, where a child gets attacked by a coyote. It's very rare, but it can happen, especially if they get adapted to us. In Pinellas County, there has not been a known attack by a coyote yet. But that can happen if they do get adapted to us. And that's why we'll have forums like this and talk with communities about things they can do to help prevent it, as well as go on to FWC. If you actually do have a coyote problem, the licensed trappers of FWC, their agents, as well as other wildlife trappers, I would recommend contacting them in order to actually get rid of the coyote and have it relocated. Because the last thing you want is to try and do it on your own and you end up getting hurt. It is legal to hunt coyotes, but it is also not legal to fire a rifle or handgun in the city limits of Pinellas County. That can actually wind you up in a lot more trouble than just for coyotes. But there are other things that you can do.
I had a question about that.
Yes.
Is it legal to fire somebody with a bow and arrow?
If you're on your own property, as well as there's not another house nearby, and you have no ability of actually injuring someone, then you technically can, as far as I know to my knowledge. I would check with your city ordinances on what they would allow with a bow and arrow,
That's
but I know
what me,
typically
I
those are
thought,
very gray areas.
I understand there's an area in Dunedin, and it's not coyotes that hired somebody to kill the peacocks. With the bow and arrow and there was.
I'm pretty sure the peacocks are actually protected, so I think that's actually illegal to hunt the peacocks.
Well, there's a neighborhood in Dunedin where the neighbors are hired somebody to hunt the.
Yeah, so I know that a lot of people consider them nuisance animals, but I'm pretty sure they are protected by the county as well as actual state law. So technically they can't really get rid of them like that. But with coyotes, it is legal to hunt them. It is legal to technically kill a coyote because they are a nuisance and problem animal. And like I said, I don't recommend killing them because it will cause them to produce more. And then you'll wind up with an even bigger problem.
Let's hold the questions until the end so we get through yours. We've got two other people that have presentations tonight, so.
Sure thing. So right here, this is actually a link that you can take to go to our website for the county. This is how you can actually report a sighting here with the county. Normally, you can just call in at Animal Services during our normal work hours, and we'll send an officer out to go patrol the area to see if we can find any tracks for coyotes, to see if it is actually coyotes or if it's just stray dogs. But you can put in a sighting here, or you can go onto the MyFWC website and put in a sighting report with them, and that helps us be able to pull together those statistics, like I said at the beginning, of the amount of sightings in each area. So the two sighting types are regular sightings and concerned sightings. Regular sightings are you essentially looking out through your window and you see like a coyote off in the wood line about 200 yards away. That's a regular sighting. That's you just being able to see one. Could be a coyote, could be a normal stray dog, unsure but possible. Concerned sightings are when they're nearby, when they are essentially like right outside your house and you're looking at it like that is a coyote right there. Those ones, so it is essentially grouped up into two different ways. With the MyFWC website, they put in there green and purple dots. Green meaning it is a regular sighting, purple meaning it is a concerned sighting. So that is their way of separating the two. There is a lot more regular sightings than there are concerned sightings.
And those stats stop in 2022?
That's just for this. For this one, this is just on their PowerPoint presentation because they haven't updated this PowerPoint in about a year or so. Because we usually take it all at the fiscal year, or not the fiscal year, the calendar year. So at October time is when we'll pretty much pull everything together for that year and put it in. This was made before the calendar year of last year.
So this is October 2021.
Yes. And this is the map from that time frame for coyote sightings. This is essentially what our map looks like. It'll put up a ping showing the area in which it was, what kind of incident was. So coyote sighting at the top, the time it happened, the day it happened, and where it was going. And that's how we can essentially figure out their migratory patterns as well as if it is just one singular coyote or if it's a group of coyotes, judging by the size in which they're moving. These are the ones from Largo area of last, I believe this photo is from 2011, but it still shows them from 2021 on the actual homepage. It'll show updated, so the amount of sightings from that year to the next year to the next year to the next year at that same time. So be more aware, be more educated on the coyote. Coyotes are not necessarily they have not gotten more aggressive or bold in terms of things, but it has to do with people conditioning them. So you going out and feeding them, that is what will get them to be more aggressive and more outgoing with people because they'll get closer to you. They won't begin to fear you anymore. And that's what you want, is for them to be able to fear you, because that means they won't come near you, they won't come near your small dogs. So one thing I can definitely recommend is if you own a small dog, utilize a normal leash, not one of the retractable leashes, because I'll say one, they can snap very easily. Two, I'll say it's very hard to control if another animal is coming at your small dog is if it's on a retractable leash.
He's a big dog.
And then this goes in hand with it, believe it or not. We have actually conditioned them before, and their current behavior that they're doing now is what we have conditioned them to do. So whether in your area it's them being able to go near you, that's because someone has conditioned them to do so. If they're staying away, that's because they've been conditioned not to go near humans, they fear us. We want to keep it that way. Most of the time, coyotes go out of their way to avoid humans, but they are discovering that humans are a good source of food. That's not necessarily saying they're eating people, but that's saying that they can get food from you, either from your trash cans, you leaving food out, or in some cases, the stray cats and small animals that they can actually get their hands on. Coyotes normally eat small mammals like rabbits, squirrels, rodents, birds, snakes, and fruit, which comprise the bulk of their diet. They are scavenger eaters, so anything they can get their hands on, they will eat. So like you were saying before of the birds have been disappearing. It may not be coyotes, but it is possible that they did fixate that into their diet. It could also be a chance of migration patterns and whatnot, but coyotes can also eat birds, they can eat rodents, anything that pretty much is a small mammal that they can attack on their own, they can eat it. Coyotes adapt to most any food source available, including domestic cats, small dogs, insects, food scraps and trash cans, compost, seeds, berries, and pet food. So anything that is edible to them, they'll find a way to eat it and be able to survive off it and reproduce. So coyotes change their behavior a lot, and that has to do with how we condition them. If there are no consequences attached to coyote and human contact, they'll get used to you and they will lose their fear. If they lose their fear, that's how you're going to wind up with coyotes outside your door all the time, every time. And that's how we wind up with attacks like that one in California with the little girl. We don't want things like that to happen. We don't want coyotes to stop fearing us. I know it sounds bad from an animal rights perspective, but with coyotes, they can be dangerous if they stop fearing. Because attacking in packs is one of the biggest things they do, and it can end very badly for even a large dog or a person if it gets to that point. Coyotes are very resourceful and they learn very quickly. So if you're stopping a coyote right now by throwing rocks at it, at some point it's going to stop fearing the rocks and just move forward. One of the biggest things that has seen to help in coyote natured nuisances is it's a frequency alarm, kind of like how you would put in your yard like a motion sensor, but it sets off a high-pitched noise that only dogs and small creatures can hear, and it would actually deter them from coming near them. If they come into the area and it starts going off every time they go there, they'll actually learn to stay away from there because it's like, I don't want to hear that. It hurts my ears. So I'm going to go off. It stops, and they'll just stop coming there eventually. It would take time, but they can actually do that. Coyotes can be reconditioned to fear humans if we all practice what is being presented right now.
You mentioned also light, bright
Light
light.
can. Also, I believe that is actually on the next
Okay, sorry.
the next slide. But yes, light, bright lights. So if you have motion sensor lights,
Yeah.
just the sudden appearance of lights and or sound would actually freak them out and they'll actually run away. They act kind of like raccoons in that sense. The moment someone starts rattling around with something, they'll pretty much head for the tree line. Continued education and building awareness levels is the key to success with this. So if you guys have any questions with coyotes, by all means, contact Animal Services. We'll give you the best help we can. If you want us to come patrol the area for coyotes, we will absolutely come and help out with that. If honestly even that isn't enough, by all means, contact FWC, talk with their helplines, or even look at their website because they are very big on coyote prevention. That is one of the biggest selling points for FWC right now because it's a large problem all over the state, not just here in Pinellas County. So how to prevent attacks on humans and domestic animals. So don't feed the coyotes. So if you have an outdoor cat, bring it inside, stop putting food bowls out, so that way we don't have to deal with them in that sense and they won't get conditioned to people. Do not feed pets outdoors or leave food outdoors. Remove other food sources such as trash and fruit on the ground. So if you have an apple tree, an avocado tree, make sure you're picking up after it because, like I said, they are scavenger animals. If they get into your yard in some way and they find fruit lying around, they're more apt to come back. I am personally guilty of that because I have a large avocado tree in my backyard. I don't like that avocado tree, but it sprouts all the time and I do lack sometimes at picking them up. If there are coyotes in my area, because I live near Walsingham Park, they could actually get into my fence line and I could deal with them a lot more if they actually started coming over there. So I've actually been getting a lot better at picking them up. Secure your trash can with securable, lockable lids. So either the trash cans that can put a padlock on it at night or just actually able to lock because they can't open a door or a lid in a normal sense if it latches. So if it's one of the pop tops, they won't be able to open it unless they knock it over. And that's one of their food sources right there is the trash. Like I said, our food that we eat is very appetizing to them. They're finding new tastes in those foods, so they are going to come back for it. Like coyotes love cat food. I don't know why, but they love cat food. So I'll say if you have a cat, make sure you're securing that cat food containers so that way if you're throwing it out, they won't get into your trash cans and pretty much eat everything and keep coming back. Don't overflow bird feeders and hang them high so that way they're not accessible to coyotes. Bird feeders aren't just for coyotes in that sense. Raccoons, squirrels, everything can pretty much get at those and eat at them. And that's how you get nuisance problems in a lot of areas. Keep overgrown areas trimmed and cleaned well. Bushes, tree lines, those are a coyote's best friend. They will hide in there, and that's what they'll use to stalk prey. That's what they'll use in order to hide and actually have their young. So if they have a secluded area to hide in, that could be their new den. Keep pets indoors from dusk to dawn or in a safe enclosure. If you have countermeasures in place, by all means, you can have a doggy door and have your dog running around in the backyard. But at nighttime is when they are most active. They will come out at night in order to feed and look for a new place to live. Harass coyotes with loud noises, clapping hands, yelling, throwing rocks at them, waving arms, and or use of air horns and lights. Like I said, they do not like loud noises. They will stay away from you 9 times out of 10 if you have something loud in some way. And then, does anyone here have a farm or livestock area? You do?
Chicken.
So I said chickens are one of their food sources. If they can get at it, they will definitely like it out there. They'll go after the afterbirth of a fowl or calf, so if you have cows or any other kind of livestock in that sense. I'm pretty much going to skip over this for the most part since most people don't have livestock. But honestly, with it, same things apply as with your normal pets and animals in terms of livestock. Secure your food sources, secure your animals at night, and place any deterrents you can.
I
So
don't
I'll
have
go-
those sensor lights.
Yeah, the sensor lights, they work the best in all
I have
honesty.
them all around the chicken yard.
Yeah, so they work the best. And this is still with livestock. How you can protect your pets, don't walk them during dawn and dusk hours, keep them indoors, and keep them on a short leash, not those retractable extendable leashes. They do not work well. Install a couple of 7-foot or higher posts with the platform towards the top for cats to escape. That one's mainly for if you have a cat colony or outdoor cats, that's saying for you to put small shelves essentially so that way they can climb on it and something small that only a cat can get on and a coyote cannot. Those are mainly prevalent in high density population areas, but not typically in Pinellas County. That's mainly like New York City. Now, can coyotes climb fences? Yes, they can. The rollers that I was talking about that you can put on the fence, so they're extenders that go on the top of the fence that extend up an extra 15 to 20 feet, or 20 inches, not feet, to prevent them from being able to climb over. Because as I said, if they can get their paws over, they can get their whole body over. And if they got over once, they can get over again. Attach 4 to 6 foot wire apron or electric trip wires at the base to prevent a coyote from digging in. If a coyote can't climb, they will try and dig. What I recommend, that is a very expensive option. What I recommend is chicken wire. If you dig out like a small ditch around your fence and then lay chicken wire down and then put the dirt back over it, they'll pretty much go to dig at it, and then once they reach the chicken wire, they can't get through it, and they'll actually stop digging and they'll leave. Because if they can't get in, it works the same way with dogs. So if you're having a problem with your dog getting out, put chicken wire at the bottom, and if they dig down, they'll hit the chicken wire, they can't get out. Diseases that coyotes carry, rabies is the most prevalent disease. There has not been a rabies outbreak in Pinellas County in about 45 years. That has to do partially with our quarantine protocols that we have in effect with dogs, cats, and any other domestic animal. And when it comes with coyotes, they are a high factor into carrying rabies along with raccoons. So they are considered our nuisance animals and high profile targets in terms of rabies control. Coyotes are a host for 11 species of parasites such as lice, ticks, and heartworms. Heartworms being the most because those can actually transfer to your pets. So if they are near coyotes, they can actually get heartworm from them, and that can be a leading cause of animal death. Can coyotes be shot or tracked? Yes, they can. Coyotes can be hunted legally all year round with guns, dogs, live traps, and snares. A permit being required to use steel traps. We recommend if you're gonna try and trap, leave that to a professional, hire a professional to do the trapping. And then, as I was saying before, it is illegal to discharge a firearm within the county limits, since we are a very high density population here. So only use a firearm if it's absolute necessary, your last choice. If traps are utilized, an owned animal, so someone's dog could actually get trapped, and then you could actually face legal persecution because of it. Because that would be a manner of animal cruelty if you trapped an animal that was owned by another person and not the nuisance animal that you're trying to get, and that's how you can wind up with legal problems. Only FWC or a legal trapper will work. And why can't the coyotes be eradicated? As I said, once they get stressed, they'll continue to repopulate as much as they can to sustain their numbers. As I said before, we did try to eradicate the coyote population in Pinellas County before, and it ended up with us having close to 500,000 coyotes in Pinellas County. It went from 50,000 to 500,000 because we started taking a couple out and euthanizing them and getting rid of them, and they started reproducing a lot more. One coyote can produce up to 12.
How many are there now?
How many are, it's unknown right now as to how many are in the county, but we've been implementing protocols like this in order to teach people to live with coyotes, and it's causing them to not produce nearly as much. In 2021, I believe there was a total of 255,000 that was estimated by the FWC, and that's just what we know of, and that's throughout the entire county. Like I said, they are coming from the northern regions and coming down into our areas. So that could actually be more, it could be less, because they could be migrating out as well. There's no way to say for certain, but what we have to do is condition ourselves and condition them to fear us. The moment they stop fearing us is when we will have a very big problem on our hands. So coexist with all wildlife, because at the end of the day, I am an animal lover. Even though coyotes can be a nuisance, I do love all animals. But we do have to practice safe means for ourselves and for our loved ones and pets. And then just as a quick